To make the marinade for the butter chicken, I've got just 120 grams of natural yogurt in a bowl, and I'm going to add all my other ingredients to that. So I'm going to start with the garlic and the ginger. And the easiest way to peel the root ginger is to use a spoon. Don't worry about using a knife, just use a spoon, and if you just scrape a teaspoon along the root ginger, you can see it peels off all the skin really easily and quickly, and it is much easier than using a knife, and you don't have anywhere near as much waste. You need a thumb-sized piece of root ginger, and the root ginger is much nicer in this recipe than dried ginger because it has a much cleaner, fresher taste, and it's quite lemony. You also need 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, which I am just crushing with the back of the knife or the flat of the knife so that I can peel those easily. So I'm not going to do all of the garlic and ginger. If I just do one for the moment. This marinade does not get, it stays on the chicken, you don't liquidize it, you don't do anything else to it. So we want the garlic and the ginger to be really small in the marinade. If you have a garlic crusher, you can crush your garlic and you can grate your root ginger. So on a grater, you would need to use the smallest size. I'm going to use this little device, which is actually just a little ceramic dish, because I prefer to do my ginger on this at home. If I was at school, I'd be using the smallest possible size of a grater that you would use for zesting. And you can see I just rub that over the ceramic dish, and it really makes the ginger lovely and fine. So I'm going to do all of my piece of root ginger, and I'll finish that in a moment. But I'm also going to use this for the garlic as well, because I don't have a garlic crusher, and whilst I could chop it, that would be fine. But actually, as you can see, I can do this and I'll get really fine bits of garlic and root ginger. Okay, so I've got all the garlic and the root ginger in my bowl with the yoghurt, and I need to add the juice of 1 lemon as well. So squeeze this out. This will help to start the cooking of the meat. It will help the marinade go through. I just don't want to put the pips in if I can avoid it. There we go. So, juice of a lemon into your marinade, and then we need to add the herbs and spices. If you don't have fresh ginger, fresh garlic at home, and it's not something that you would normally buy, it's fine to use either frozen or dried, the pastes. But if you're doing this for your exam, it is better to use the fresh and show those preparation skills. So, in the bowl at the moment, I've got natural yogurt, garlic, ginger, and lemon juice, and I need to add all the remaining ingredients for the marinade. So when this goes in the oven to cook, it's going to be a little bit dry, so we just add 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. You need to add half a teaspoon of garam masala. So half a teaspoon of garam masala, half a teaspoon of turmeric. So half a teaspoon of turmeric, which will help give some colour to the butter chicken. 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, and it is only 1 teaspoon. I'm just using the half teaspoon measure, because that fits in my jar nice and easily. And lastly, some chilli powder, and it's 3 teaspoons of chilli powder. Now, you do not have to use 3 teaspoons of chilli powder. If you prefer less chilli in your butter chicken, if you prefer a milder dish, you can leave the chilli powder out altogether, and it doesn't really matter. It's personal choice whether you use mild or hot chilli powder. Mine is hot because we quite like things to be hot and spicy, and then you just mix this together, and this is the basis of the marinade. So everything in together, ready to add the chicken. Right, I want to show you how to debone chicken thighs. Chicken thighs are a cheap cut of meat, and it's nice and straightforward to use. You can, for your exam, to get the higher skills, if you're using chicken, you can prepare a whole chicken, get it off the bone, but actually it can be quite expensive if you've got to buy a whole chicken and then you only want to use the chicken breast. So you've bought a whole chicken so you can take off 2 chicken breast fillets. Chicken thighs are much cheaper, and it's the same level of skill. So the first thing that you need to do is just get rid of the skin on the chicken thigh. It pulls off quite easily. If you find it slippery and you have difficulty in actually keeping hold of it, just get a bit of paper towel or tissue and get hold of the chicken thigh, and it will be easier for you to grip it and tear that off. When you've got the chicken thigh, the chicken skin off, you can see there is still some fat here on the chicken, which I just want to get rid of. So I'm just going to trim off that bit of fat, and I'm just going to trim off that bit of fat there as well, because I don't really want lots of fat in the chicken thigh. Okay, this is a new worktop for me and a new board, and it was moving around, and I'm not boning with it moving, so I've just put a tea towel underneath to stop the board from moving. This is a boning knife, and it's quite a thin blade, so to bone meat out, if you don't have a boning knife, that's absolutely fine, but if you wish to bone meat, a thin blade is sometimes easier than a thick blade. And chicken thighs just have the one bone, and you can normally see from top to bottom of the chicken bone. So you need to just slice down to the bone from the top, right? And you cut down one side of the chicken thigh. So just cut one side, try not to cut through the meat all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. So I'm just going to cut, and I'm pressing my knife against the bone so that I am leaving as much bone there, taking as much meat away, but just leaving the bone like that. And then what you need to do is just loosen the meat from one end. So once you've done that, you can almost get your fingers underneath the chicken thigh. So what I like to do is I'll put my knife underneath the bone, and I will cut up one way like that, so that I have loosened the meat from that end of the chicken thigh. I can then cut down, get to the bottom, and just cut around here. So just slice around the knobbly end of the chicken thigh. There we go. So I've got my chicken here. It's always good to check because you can leave some of the cartilage, so you can just trim that up. I know there's nothing at the other end, so I have a chicken thigh with no bone in, and if I roll it up like that, it looks like the chicken thighs that you would buy in the shop. So this end has got quite a lot of sinew, gristle, but I have a boned chicken thigh. So I'm just going to do that again. You start by peeling the skin off the chicken, and if it makes your hands greasy, paper towel, grip, get rid of the skin. I'm just going to get rid of this extra fat, that side and this side of the chicken. Turn it over so you're working from the thinnest part, cut down to the bone. So just slice down to the bone. You can feel the bone in there, and then just slice around, keeping your fingers out of the way, but just slice down the bone. And with the knife tip, you can actually feel as you are cutting against the bone. So you can feel the bone there. Turn it around, slice the other side. I prefer to turn mine around and keep working on the same side. And then if you don't want to put your fingers underneath like I did before, what you can do is loosen, make sure that you've got rid of or cut away all of the meat from one end of the bone. And it's no good, I'm going to have to put my knife under because there is so much gristle and things there. It's the only way I can do it. Lift the bone up so that you are working away from you, down onto the board, and then cut round. So I have a bone with hardly any meat on and a chicken thigh. And then just double check this end. I've got some gristle and some sinew and some bits of cartilage that I just want to get rid of because I do not want to use those in my meal. So like this, you can then just slice this chicken up. So this chicken thigh I am going to put into a curry in a minute. So same as normal, same as you would normally, you can just chop this up. It is a lot cheaper if you can do this for yourself, because buying chicken thighs with bone and skin on is much cheaper than buying the bone skinned ones. But as I said, it's a good skill to show in your exam. If you wish to do something with chicken, boning out the chicken thigh to start with will help you improve your grade. Okay, I've boned out my pack of chicken thighs. I've got, it was a large pack of chicken thighs, so it was about 1 kilo. You don't obviously need to use that much meat, but it just happens to be the size of the pack. So I have diced all of my chicken, and it now just needs to be stirred into the marinade. If you don't want to use chicken thighs, obviously you can use chicken breast or something else. However, as I've said, for your exam, boning out chicken thighs is a good skill. If you're just making this for yourself at home, it's up to you what sort of chicken you put in it. But you can see there's plenty of marinade there for about 900 grams to 1 kilo of meat, but you can halve the recipe quite easily if you want to. So I'm just going to cover that and put that to marinade while I do something else. To make the sauce for the butter chicken, I've got all my ingredients out and ready. So you need 125 mils of water, which goes, all of these ingredients just go straight into the saucepan together to start with. I've got a can of chopped tomatoes. I'm going to add just a couple of teaspoons of sugar because we are using canned tomatoes and sometimes they are a little bit sharp. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of garam masala. So just 1 teaspoon of garam masala because I want that to cook through. And then I have the rest of the herbs and spices on my tray. I do have 80 grams of butter, but that's not going in yet. In the saucepan I'm going to put 1 bay leaf, 2 cloves, 4 green cardamom pods, and then I have more chilli to add. If you don't really like chilli, you don't need to add any more chilli at this stage, but these chillies are quite mild, and because they're mild I'm not going to remove the seeds. I've taken the end off and I'm just going to slice these and add these into the pan in a moment, seeds and all. And there will be 2 of these chillies going in, so I'm going to put both the chillies into the sauce. I'll do the second one in a minute. I have more garlic, and I've peeled my garlic, but this time I'm just going to roughly chop the garlic, and I'm not worried about the chillies too much either because they are going to be, this sauce is going to be liquidised once it has reduced a little bit. So it doesn't have to be really finely chopped. I can roughly chop the garlic, so 3 or 4 more cloves of garlic depending on how much you like. 1 or 2 green chillies, I'll do the second one in a minute, and a bit more root ginger. And I've just peeled this again using a spoon. But again, because I'm going to liquidise this, I'm not going to worry about grating it. I'm just going to roughly chop the ginger, and that can go into the saucepan as well. And what you need to do is bring your saucepan up to the boil. And as I mentioned, this is a reduction sauce, so we just need it to come up to the boil and cook for about 15 to 20 minutes so that all of the flavours are blended. So while I am waiting for that to come up to the boil, in a moment I'm going to turn the oven on to gas mark 7, 220 electric, because I want a really hot oven to start cooking the chicken. So the chicken is just going to be spread onto a baking tray and go into the oven. I don't want to put it in too soon because when it comes out of the oven I want to put it straight into the sauce to finish off. So I want to get my sauce on to cook first before I put the chicken into the oven. So garlic, ginger, more chilli into that pan. That can go over to the cooker, come up to the boil and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes until it has reduced. So my rubbish is going onto a paper towel, and I'm just going to do the garlic quickly, remembering ridge hold through your fingers to chop. Then turn it round and roughly chop it the other way. And the same with the second one. Ridge hold through your fingers to start the chopping and cut the other way. If you want to, you can then just use your knife and make that a little bit smaller if some of the bits look rather large. And the onion, remember we want to keep all the rubbish out of the way, so cut your onion in half. If you only want to use half an onion with a can of tomatoes, that's fine, but it's easier to peel the skin off after you've cut it in half. You can just take off down to one clean layer And if you take off one end of your onion, you can then cut through again using bridge hold. Don't go fully to the end of the onion. You can see I'm not cutting through the root, and I'm not cutting right off the end of the onion. If I pick that up, it's still held together at this end. And then I'm going to turn it round. I'd normally work this way, but if I turn it this way, you can see, swap to claw grip and slice across the onion to get nice, small, fine pieces of onion. When you get towards the end, if you can't hold it quite so well, you can just turn your onion and use as much as you want. So I have half an onion and some garlic. Okay, the sauce for the butter chicken is a lot thicker than it was, and before I can do anything else to it, I just need to remove some of the whole herbs and spices, which means I've got to find them. And what I want to try and take out of here are the bay leaves, the 2 cloves and the 4 cardamom pods. So I'm just going to have a look for those, find those and remove them before I then blend the sauce. Okay, so having found the bay, cloves and cardamom, I'm now going to blitz this with a stick blender to make it a little bit smoother, because at the moment you can see it is quite lumpy with the garlic and the ginger and everything else. With your stick blenders, you need to make sure that you have put them into your saucepan to start off with, and that you don't turn them off until they are actually at the bottom of the pan. Turn them off and whiz. Turn them on and whiz, excuse me. And you can pick them up a little bit and move them around, or you can just move them around the pan. But if you're going to pick your blender up and move it, make sure that you have stopped mixing first of all. So just move that around a little bit until you've got a nice smooth sauce. Okay, the easiest way to wash your stick blender, if you have one that comes apart like this, that's fine. You can wash this bit in the sink. If yours is one which doesn't come apart, normally they come with a tall thin jug, and to make sure that you have it completely clean underneath, what I would do normally is put hot water and a little bit of washing up liquid in the jug, put the stick blender into the jug, make sure that the water's obviously nowhere near the motor, and then turn that on in the jug to get the worst of the mixture off your beaters. So my sauce is smoother now. It's got lots of bubbles in it because I've blended it, and what I'm going to do for this butter sauce is I'm just going to put in 50 grams of butter and just stir that into the hot sauce until that is melted. Once the chicken has been in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes and started to cook, I'll add that to the pan as well, and then I'll put this back on the heat to finish cooking the chicken. Okay, my chicken has had its 10 to 15 minutes in the oven, and you can see the top of the chicken is starting to brown. I've got juice coming out of the chicken as well, so I'm going to add that to my blended sauce. It won't be cooked through yet, but all of this is going to go into this blended sauce, and then I'm going to put it back on the heat for another 10 minutes, and then I will check to see if the chicken is cooked through. I'm adding all of the meat juices from this as well, because that will help to flavour the sauce, and I'm going to put it on the heat without a lid on, because I would like some of that liquid to evaporate. So you've got all your spices in there, 10 to 15 minutes on the heat, just to finish cooking the sauce. Okay, the last things to be done to finish the butter chicken, I've got 75 mils of cream, which I'm just going to put into the saucepan now before I serve. It's a good idea not to put it in too much in advance, because sometimes the sauce can split. So I'm just stirring that in, and that is not splitting, so that's fine. I'll just pop that back over on the cooker for a moment while I sort out the rice and the plate. The rice I've just put into a small mould, and it's really nice if you do this for your presentation. You can upend that on a plate, just lift your mould up and you have a little timbale of rice. I've got another one here. This one is slightly hotter because it's in a metal container, but the same thing, it works either way. So I have a collection of, or a range of dishes for this to go into. You can then take your butter chicken and just spoon that onto your plate around the rice. You can pour a little bit of the sauce over the top of the rice, and I'm just going to do this on both plates. I've put some on a small plate because this plate is quite large, so this one I'm just going to scoop some of the butter chicken and then a little bit of the sauce, and the same thing, a little bit of the sauce possibly over the rice to finish that off. And then you need your naan breads. So just a single naan bread on here. So this one, the plate is big enough for me to put a naan bread on. The smaller plate, I can't get a naan bread on at the same time. But what is important is on here, I just need to wipe up that little splash before that is served. So this one, I would serve on that size plate. It would be just the butter chicken and the rice. This plate being larger, I can do the butter chicken, the rice and the naan bread. If you were going to do that for your exam, you would probably have to put your naan bread on a separate dish. But there you have butter chicken, rice and naan bread.